If you had to guess, what would you consider a reasonable floor and ceiling for Travis Homer in this week's matchup, especially now that Walker is officially doubtful? I think he's doubtful, not expected to play, but it's not been officially official yet. Jeremy Fowler did report not expected to play, but yeah, that he's as good as being ruled out for all of our purposes. I think that's how we need to operate, at least, is that Kenneth Walker is out. What is a reasonable floor and ceiling for Travis Homer? I think when talking about Travis Homer, we need to look at some of the past performances that Homer has had when given double-digit touches. So back in 2019, when Homer had 15 touches, he finished with 11.7 fantasy points. When he had 11 touches in 2019, he finished with 7 fantasy points. Travis Homer in 2020, there weren't any games where he had 10 touches, but he had one game where he had 9 touches, and that he finished with 9 fantasy points there, 9.5 fantasy points. If you are new, or if you like the answers that I'm giving, make sure you're hitting that red subscribe button. It really helps the channel. There weren't any games in 2021 where he had double-digit touches, but he did have one where he had 7 touches and he finished with 18 fantasy points in that game, because that was the game where he had the rushing touchdown on the fake punt. So we know that Travis Homer has a lot of speed. So I think you're looking at like a floor of 7 fantasy points and a ceiling of, let's say, like 13. So 7 to 13, if we're looking at what 7 to 13 fantasy points would be, in like leaderboard for week 13. Okay. Stats, week 13, leaders, like 13 fantasy points last week would put you at running back 16. And then 7 fantasy points would put you at running back 36. So a mid running back 2 would be his ceiling, and a low end running back 3 would just be his floor. And I think that that's a fair assumption, or a fair way to gauge where Travis Homer would be. So 7 to 13 fantasy points is the range where I would expect Travis Homer to be. If he falls outside of that, one way or the other is probably going to be either usage or he fell in the end zone multiple times.